what are the verbs that I'm going to give him? And that defines the game. You write that. That's the way I've always defined my games. I start down and I write down, these are the actions that I'm going to let the user do. And then I look at it and say, are these interesting actions? You know, do they combine in ways that can have interesting results? And if you look at it that way, you really can see games in an entirely new light. I mean, consider, what are the verbs in a typical shooter? Turn to the left, turn to the right, duck, jump, run, run slow, walk, aim, shoot. That's about it. Pardon?
Most games have knife now. So.
Oh, okay. More buttons. So we get, you know, they're using the same verbs over and over and over, and that's why it's the same game over and over and over. First, start evaluating games in terms of the verb list. That is, play a game. In fact, I recommend this as a learning exercise. Just get together to consider one game and come up with the verb list for that game. And then do another game, the verb list for that, and another, and another, and another. And then start looking at the verb list, and you're going to see they're all the same. And even very different games still have very similar verb lists. So in my mind, they're really not that different. So, you know, think about verbs that you kind of might want to do. Wouldn't it be neat if you could have the verb kiss? And if it meant something. I mean, yeah, you could have a shooter where you approach the filthy, slobbering monster and kiss him. But that doesn't do anything. Yeah, kiss you eat. But wouldn't it be neat to have a game where the verb kiss actually meant something? That if you kiss somebody at the wrong time, they might get mad at you. And you kiss somebody, another person, and you get just a little, oh, hi. And you kiss somebody else and it's, oh, I want you. You know, that would be an interesting game, wouldn't it? God, think of the input device Nintendo would have for that. Anyway, think in terms of weird verbs. You know, what would I like to do that's fun? Another really big thing. There's so much I would. If you followed my advice, you'd spend the next 10 years studying, because there's so many things that it's helpful to know. For example, it's really good to know a lot about human psychology, especially cognitive skills. And there are lots of different variations, but I'll talk about 5. There are 4 cognitive skills that are standard. A game challenges you in some way. It challenges you cognitively. It challenges how you think. And there are 4 skills that games challenge. Spatial reasoning. That's a very important one. Puzzle solving. Resource management. I got 4 bullets and there are 5 monsters. And then hand-eye coordination. Those are the cognitive skills. Now, if you know much about psychology, you will know that it's pretty well established that males have a special strength in spatial reasoning, and females are weaker at it. And now, ask yourself, how many games require spatial reasoning? To put it another way, how many games have a map? A 2-dimensional display showing space. They all do. Even text adventures have a map. They all involve moving around in space. And in fact, that's primarily what they do. Let me do a shtick for you here. Let's imagine a movie scene. Okay, here's the hero standing here. The phone rings. He picks it up. Yes? What? I'll be right there. Slam. Very next shot. Bursts in through the door and says, what the hell is going on here? Let's do the same scene in a game, shall we? Phone rings. You pick it up. What? I'll be right there. Put the phone down. Turn 80 degrees to the right. Take 4, 5 steps. Turn to the right. Take 1, 2, 3 steps. Turn to the right. Down the stairs. Open the door. Close the door. Go through here. Step down the steps of the house. In front of the car. Open the car door. Get in the car. Close the car door. Turn it. Put the key in the ignition. Turn the key. Drive. 5 blocks north. 6 blocks east. 5 blocks north. Blah, 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 blah. Get to the place you're going. Open the car door. Get out of the car. Walk up the stairs. Through the place. And finally you reach the door. Open the door and say, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom now. So, that's how games handle it. It's all spatial. There's an extremely important cognitive skill that, and by the way, the fact that all games are spatial is a clear reflection of the fact that games are designed by guys for guys. The vast majority of players are guys. Now, don't be fooled. The industry keeps putting out these studies in which they say 90% of all Americans play games. It's now been shown that 63% of women, or 63% of the women who also play games. But what they mean is, for example, my wife. She likes to play the numbers game, numbers puzzle, Japanese. Yes. God, I'm getting old and forgetting everything. She likes to play that about once, maybe 3 times a week. She'll sit down and play that for an hour. She's a game player, right? The right way to count it is to say, where is the money coming from? How much money is being spent by various groups? And it turns out women are spending very little money on games. They'll go along and play games as a social activity. Hey, we're getting together to play a game. You want to come over? Yeah, sure. Most of the money is coming from young males. And so don't be fooled. This is one of these things where, you know, you believe what you want to believe. Don't ever make that mistake. You got to be honest. So anyway, the games have spatial reasoning because they're played primarily by guys, or at least I should say they're paid for primarily by guys. But there's one huge cognitive skill that I haven't mentioned yet, and that is social reasoning. One reason why it's not in games is because guys don't have it. You know, guys just never, and this is especially true of young guys. I remember, here's my version of that. High school, I was going with, so all of us were packed into this car going somewhere, and I wanted to repair my hat, so I had a needle and thread, and I was, you know, sewing the hat, only I'd pull the thread out like this, pull the thread out like this. And there was a girl sitting right next to me, and my hand with the needle was going like this. And she finally said, would you mind not doing that? And I looked at her and said, oh, that never even occurred to me. So that's the way guys are. Gals are always saying, guys just don't get it. And they don't. So males have very poor social reasoning skills, which is why there is never any social challenge in games, why that cognitive skill is not challenged. There is another reason, however. Social reasoning is infinitely more complex than spatial reasoning. I mean, you can easily program a computer to do spatial reasoning. And in fact, we're now the algorithms we have for spatial reasoning are much better than any humans. But when it comes to social reasoning, it's really, really hard. I did a very simple thing with that, with gossip and the springs. And I think there's room for other simple developments, but we are just in the early days of that. Do you realize that the algorithms, the social reasoning algorithms I use in gossip, have not yet been equaled by anything in the games industry? That's really pathetic, because nobody has even tried. So, I urge urge you, do games for social reasoning. And I'll give you two good reasons why. One, you probably get rich, because if you build a good one, I mean, people have been looking for games for girls since the very beginning, and the things they come up with are pretty pathetic. But they know there's a huge market out there. The other reason why only applies if you're a young male. If you design really good girl games, you know, maybe you'll attract more women. Who knows? So, at least you won't look as geeky as most game designers. So, social reasoning. That is the new frontier of game design, I believe. For 30 years I've spent pursuing the goal that is now called interactive storytelling. It's, I mean, if you want to know about interactive storytelling, this will at least tell you my own history with it. It will not tell you much about how to do it. Should I explore that now? Is that an area of much interest? Oh, okay. A lot of people in the games industry are talking about getting stories in the game, and the way they do it is just so pathetic. It's contemptible, because their idea is, all right, we're going to make this really great game now. Okay, we got this good game all in our heads. Now let's go find a novelist or something, bring him in here, and you make up here's the game, make up a really good story to go along with the game, and then we'll take your story and nail it onto our game, okay? And that's the way most of these things are. The story is tacked onto the game. It is not part of the game. Typically, the stories are very seldom interactive dramatically interactive. So what you do is, typically, you play some game that, you know, is really interactive. Boy, you're moving real fast and so forth, and then stop. We're going to show you some story now, and we're going to show you all this dramatic stuff. Oh, I'm crying, I'm laughing, and so forth. And it's not interactive, but it's story. And then we're going to go back and play some more game, be interactive again. And if we do this fast enough, it's